After this, Rimuru leaves to check up on Toa. In the room, Rimuru asks how Toa is doing, and she replies that she's getting better, courtesy of Rimuru's honey. She thanks him. She confesses to envying Rimuru because she sees that though Rimuru is a nation's leader, as she is, he still spends time with his companions. She feels she is unfair, because when she saw the way Hiro defended his people, risking his life for them, she reasoned within herself that if she saved him, she would get someone she could trust on her side. Rimuru comforts her, telling her everyone does that sometimes, and that being calculative is not as bad as she's making it to be. With that, the queen lightens up. The next day, Lakua returns to the kingdom from a trip. He is shocked to see very significant changes in the whole kingdom. The land is being cultivated, the queen is well, the lake has been purified. All these cause Lakua to be very devastated. He learns that Hiro and the slime Rimuru had caused that to happen and laments on his foiled plan of fulfilling his master's wish and thereby elevating his status. He determines to destroy their work by reintroducing tragedy and chaos to the land again. The next day, Hiro is spending time at the burial grounds of his comrades and Benimaru joins him there, having been informed of Hiro's whereabouts by Rimuru. They lament over their lost friends when they receive the news that Queen Toa-san is sick again. At the same time, Rimuru is in his slime state, carried by Shuna in her house. He speaks with Diablo to report to her through thought communication, so he doesn't have to always come to him, but Diablo replies that he doesn't find it stressful running to him each time. As they talk, they also receive a report that Queen Toa is sick again. She collapsed after using her tiara to save her people after the lake became so poisoned again that the air around it became very toxic. At the same time of the queen's sudden sickness and the lake's poisoning, the neighboring nation is also preparing to launch an attack against Raja. Rimuru is surprised because he had gotten rid of the magic circle that was making the poison and cannot figure out why the poison would return to the lake. Rimuru desires to go to Raja at once to help the queen, but he is suspicious. The events are too coordinated to be a coincidence, not after he totally cleansed the lake of its poison previously. He wonders if the royal physician, Chikwan, is really taking care of the queen. To start with, he calls on some of his servants and asks them to find out why the neighboring nation is targeting Raja. He calls some other servants and asks them to get the rest of them together. In Raja, Chikwan tells the elders it would be impossible to relocate the queen, as she won't last on the run enough to avoid the battle. Hiro stands beside the queen's bed in sorrow over the queen's sick state. The next day, Rimuru mobilizes everyone to come together to help in supporting Raja and the queen, as they don't know who's pulling the strings behind the scenes. He, however, asks Valdora to help him look after Tempest, as he joins Raja to solve their problems. Everyone obliges with utmost pleasure. Before they leave, Diablo tells Rimuru he might know who is behind the curse on the tiara and the magic circle in the lake. He asks for permission to negotiate having the curse undone. Rimuru grants him permission. That night, Hiro walks alone, meditating on the way forward on healing the queen. Lakua is seated on an entrance on the road and beckons on Hiro, telling him he has a confidential message for him on the possible way to save the queen's life. Hiro is very interested, so he follows Lakua into a room where Lakua tells him there is a secret art that involves transferring one's soul into another, but for that to occur there has to be a level of compatibility in the parties involved. In other words, the queen can switch soul with Hiro, but Hiro may lose his soul in the process. Hiro considers this shortly, then gives his consent, eager to repay the queen for saving his life, even if it would mean he would lose his. Lakua praises him for his beautiful heart and selflessness as Hiro orders him to start the process at once. Lakua opens a box and reveals a shiny object in it. He calls it a curse orb and explains that he had picked it from the far west and that the orb can rebuild a body, thereby making it stronger than it was before. He asks Hiro to swallow it to ensure the success of the ritual for the transfer of souls. Hiro collects it and swallows it. He feels strange in his body, but Lakua assures him that his body is trying to accept the orb. He suggests that they move to a more secretive place where no one can interfere the process. Hiro follows him, carrying the queen. Meanwhile, Rimuru has gathered everyone together, but they can't find the queen and Hiro. Ranga, Rimuru's magical dog, starts to sniff around for them, and they all begin their search for the queen and Hiro. On getting to the secret place, Hiro places the queen on a golden slab. She soon wakes up and asks what she's doing there. Hiro explains that he is about to perform a ritual to return the life she gave back to her, so she won't have to suffer again. The queen would not hear of such. She says she cannot allow such and sits up immediately. She tells Hiro to live for himself, his dead friends, and to live for her. Hiro is touched by the queen's words and is convinced that he now wants to live. Lacroix asks him to commence the ritual, but by the time Hiro would reply to Lacroix, he realizes Lacroix had changed. He saw him sitting on an elevated ground, laughing at him and the queen. He mocks them both, saying that no ritual like that exists. He had only deceived Hiro into believing something like that existed just so he could swallow the orb, which actually contains a secret treasure of power, but that would make the queen even use her magic in her tiara, and once the queen's body is wasted away completely, he would receive his reward from his master. Lacroix marches around in utter pleasure, happy that his plan worked this time. He tells them that the slime spoiled his plan, so he had to replan again. Hiro is angry and launches an attack at Lacroix, who makes jest of him, provoking him to anger even more. The orb works with rage. Once rage ignites and increases, the orb would lead him to despair. Lacroix speaks to the curse orb to burst. As Hiro fights and increases in rage, the orb changes him into another man. Lacroix reminds him of his village in ruins, and his rage increases. He keeps telling him things that will increase his rage. The more raged he was, the more the orb consumed him, till he changes totally and starts destroying everything. The queen watches on and is forced to stand up, but she is hit by a stone Hiro had made to fall. Lacroix motivates the queen to use her power to save Hiro. The queen decides to save him, but as she tries to use her power, a wall hits her and Lacroix, and she falls into the hands of Rimuru, who apologizes for coming late. They had finally found them after searching for long. They build magic walls around the queen to protect her from Hiro's attacks, and Benimaru engages Hiro in a fight. Lacroix meets Rimuru and accuses him of always standing in his way. Rimuru asks if he is the one behind all the chaos. Instead, he runs away. Rimuru climbs on Ronga and chases after him, putting Shune in charge of the queen. All the while Rimuru chases Lacroix, Lacroix does not cease to mock him and taunt him, calling him a slime, but Rimuru persists in chasing after him still. As he does, he receives information that the neighboring army are close to the border of Raja. He instructs them to fight if they have to, as they are busy at their end. They shouldn't kill if it's not necessary, but nonetheless, they should put their own lives first. As all this is going on, Diablo continues in his quest for the one who has put the curse on the tiara. He visits a once co-demon, Violet. Obviously, the two of them have some unfinished business, as they seem to antagonize each other even from their greeting. However, Diablo asks if Violet has anything to do with Raja Kingdom, and if she is responsible for placing a magic circle in the lake. At first, Violet says no, but when Diablo insists, she confesses to taking a liking for the kingdom's royal family. Diablo probes further, knowing there is much more that Violet's not talking about. Violet tells Diablo the genesis of her interaction with the kingdom. It started a few centuries ago, when the then queen needed help and wanted to save her kingdom. The queen had mistaken Violet for a goddess, but Violet liked it. She had played games with the queen by giving her a tiara, explaining to her that there is a great power in the tiara to save her people, but the tiara is cursed. Once the power is used up, the queen dies and the tiara's power is renewed for the next generation. The queen then agreed, given that she would have the power to save her people. Violet ended by telling the queen to keep entertaining her till the end of her bloodline. After finishing her narration, Diablo scoffs at her, saying so she wants to enjoy watching every generation of the queen's bloodline suffer. From her narration, she seemed to have entered a kind of contract with the royal family, but Diablo is of a different opinion. He accused her of having one of her minions manipulate situations to force the queen to use her tiara. Violet feels insulted by the accusation. When Diablo insists that he's telling the truth, Violet is provoked to anger and challenges Diablo in a fight. Diablo takes on the challenge, but doesn't so much as lift a finger, but remains unaffected by Violet's display of her magical powers, frustrating her. As she keeps proving to Diablo that she has better magical powers, her servant appears to her to stop fighting, but she insists. Then another servant demon appears to her and informs her that Diablo is right, that Lacroix has taken matters into his hands by manipulating circumstances to have the queen use her tiara by all means. He explains to Violet how Lacroix has stirred up the neighboring nation against Raja by giving them false information, and also that Lacroix has put something else in the queen's body other than the cursed poison. Violet is upset and feels defeated because all of Lacroix's efforts have foiled the contract she has with the royal family. She reluctantly concedes to Diablo to hand off the royal family. Back in Raja, the battle is fierce between Hiro and Benimaru. Benimaru tries to help Hiro back to his sense, but all to no avail. Meanwhile, Rimuru keeps pursuing hard after Lacroix. Because Lacroix is busy facing Rimuru to talk to him and insult him, he didn't notice a deep pit of liquid fire in front of him and falls into it. As Rimuru stands at the edge of the pit, still taking in what had just happened, he sees Lacroix fly out of the pit, laughing Rimuru to scorn. Rimuru flies on Ranga and pursues Lacroix as he flies out of the pit. They meet in the sky, where the physician Chakran flies to join Lacroix, assuring him that he will back him up in his fight against Rimuru. Rimuru's questions and confusions about Chakran seem to clear up that moment. He tells him no wonder he didn't see any sign of recovery on the queen the whole time he treated her. Ranga asks permission to destroy. Rimuru grants him. Ranga immediately runs after him and destroys him. After that, Rimuru faces Lacroix and announces to him that he would face the same end as Chakran, but Lacroix seemed to have an even stronger force backing him up. He tells Rimuru not to ever underestimate him. They both draw out their swords and engage in a fight. As Rimuru defeats Lacroix, holding his throat to his sword, he threatens Rimuru, saying if he kills him, his lady would avenge his death. Rimuru is taken aback, wondering who his lady is. Then, as if in answer to his question, Violet speaks through a light without showing her face. Lacroix is happy she came to his rescue, but is shocked when Violet tells him he has ruined her fun by forcing Queen Toa to use her tiara. Her plan was for the queens to choose to use the tiara of their own accord, and for Lacroix to just observe the queen, nothing more. Lacroix had believed working hard to ensure the queen used her tiara so her life could waste away would bring Violet pleasure and secure him a space beside her, but he is shocked to hear Violet say otherwise. Instead of helping him, Violet tells him to face the consequences of his actions, as she doesn't have any need for incompetent servants. Seeing he is alone and refusing to give in to utter defeat, Lacroix decides to turn into a monster like what Hiro had turned into and destroy the kingdom completely. He takes the last curse orb in his pocket and swallows it, saying if he would die, he would take everyone with him. He turns into a nuclear flame monster capable of turning the whole kingdom into ashes. Rimuru uses his power to destroy him with his nuclear flame. He cleared them all without a trace. After Lacroix's defeat, he checks on the soldiers fighting off the neighboring nation. He gives the go-ahead to kill the army of the neighboring country because Lacroix had replaced all the army leaders with his own servants. With this information, the soldiers begin to kill all their enemies and finish in no time. Left with Hiro's case, he quickly runs to the battle site. Meanwhile, the fight is still ongoing between Hiro and Benimaru. Benimaru, who has tried his best to make Hiro come back to his senses, now decides to use his haze of black smoke powder that he had held back on using all along because he didn't want Hiro dead. He has to use it now because he has no option. He hoped Hiro would not die as he watched the effect of the smoke on Hiro after it was released. The bridge they were standing on breaks and shatters, and they both fall down to the level where Queen Toa and Shuna were. Hiro did not die, but instead becomes more violent. As he launches at Benimaru, who was on the floor, Queen Toa runs and stands in between them to protect Benimaru from Hiro's attack. She looks at him and calls her own name. When Hiro hears her name, he stops dead in his tracks. Then with a loud roar, he dips his hand into his chest and removes the curse orb, then starts to gradually change back into the original Hiro. Benimaru runs to him as he falls to the ground. Hiro, now fully himself, commends Benimaru for fighting so valiantly. Benimaru replies that he is not as strong as Hiro is, and that he trusted that he would return back to his senses on his own. As they speak, Hiro's body starts to vanish. This is the price he has to pay for using the curse orb. Rimuru comes in at this point and stretches a potion to him to use, but unfortunately the potion is ineffective and he cannot be healed. He has to die for using the curse orb. Rimuru is sad. As Hiro disappears, the queen and Shuna weep. The queen, however, would not watch that happen without trying one last time. She conjures the power on her tiara with her last life force. She brings Hiro back to life. With that, her tiara breaks and she vanishes. Rimuru cannot do anything this time also, as the queen's death is the price to pay for the wish she had made. But on the other side, Tao stands before the goddess Violet, who sends her back to Earth as a way of apology for voiding their contract. Tao returns to life again and everyone is happy. The curse poison completely disappears from the land. The queen is completely healed. The water is pure and clean. The people are happy and they rejoice. The elders appreciate Rimuru for his help in rebuilding their kingdom and ask for a way to repay him. To that, Rimuru asks to buy a vein of iron ore that was found in the cave that had collapsed in Benimaru and Hiro's battle. The elders find that too small a gift, but Rimuru says it's okay. They are grateful for the kind gestures of Rimuru towards them, but Rimuru tells them he likes Tao for her willingness to risk her life for her people. The people of the land lived peacefully ever after. We sometimes need the help of people to ward off life's evils like this. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel.